June 13th, found some snow, so we had to play in it. This was a big day for me because I envisioned my friends back in Iowa in a hot, sticky soybean field pulling weeds. I'm like, yeah, this is tough life. About 2/3 of the way up the lake is a little village called Barron's River. We stopped to resupply there. Went into the Hudson Bay Company store. And now to the locals up there, it's just the store. And that. But this is a big day for us because Hudson Bay Company has been around for 300 years. They've been a huge part of the history up there. And so we kind of felt like we were connected to things going in here. After Barron's River, the lake changes. You lose the rock. You got a bunch of sand, about 30, 40 feet, and then that's a swamp behind you. Rich had some fun here. We're paddling along, and the wind came up screaming, really cold, and we pulled in, hit the beach, and Rich jumped out, and there's a little drop-off there. And so he got wet head to foot. Didn't think anything of it. He kind of laughed about it. But then we started trying to get a fire going, and we couldn't get it going in the wind. It was blowing so hard. Finally did get the fire going, and the wind was blowing so strongly that you just blow the heat away. You go stand on the fire and you don't get warm. Well, about this time, Rich starts shaking uncontrollably. He's getting cold. So we fought to get a tent up and threw him in there, put all 4 sleeping bags on him, and then waited. And about every 5 minutes, we'd yell to him, "Hey, Rich, how you doing?" He's like, "Man, I don't know. I'm just not getting warm." And that went on for about a half an hour. And then Hank yells into Rich, says, "Okay, look, Rich," says, "if you don't get warm quick, one of us is going to have to get in there with you." Rich says, "Oh, okay." He survived. The next day the wind had gone down some, but we didn't go anywhere. So we hung out and played football with our spool rope. These are the things you do. I've got this shot for 2 reasons. One is we couldn't believe that Lake Winnipeg gave us a second day like this. I couldn't believe our luck. And the second is that we approached Lake Winnipeg very differently than the rest of the trip. The rest of the trip, when we saw something cool, we stopped and we enjoyed it. Not on Lake Winnipeg. When it let us paddle, we paddled. On this day, I think we paddled for 14 hours and went 50 miles. You can kind of see that in Hank's face in the back. Yeah, we were hungry a lot. Ran into some ice in the upper part of the lake. There were still some little pieces like this floating around and some bigger floes out in the distance. But this is the kind of camp that made it all worthwhile. This is our last day on Lake Winnipeg. And you're facing west, and there is a horizon you just can't believe. It's just so big. It was a nice place. So we made it off Lake Winnipeg. And now we're coming into that village that's 400 miles from the bay. And this is the boat that's coming out of there, heading towards Lake Winnipeg. And that's what we're taking next time. I don't know where to begin here. Cindy can probably fill you in on all the things that happened here, but I'll just leave it at this. One of the first people we met was a Mountie. And we asked him, well, where can we camp? And he said, well, it can get rough around here. You better camp on our post. So we're like, okay. And we did. We ended up spending 3 days here due to the weather and got to know these guys really well. Tough duty. It's not first choice duty. Most of them were really young, early in their career. On this particular night, maybe after some whiskey had been consumed, we convinced Mal here to put on the dress reds for us, which they don't wear that. But, you know, that was our image of the Mounties, because, you know, the only thing we knew was Dudley Do-Right. And so that's what we expected to see, and they gave it to us, and we appreciate that. We got to know these guys so well when we left. If you look up here on his collar, they gave us each one of these collar pins. And that meant a lot to us. Now, I don't know why they put me next to Keith. They don't have a permanent court up there. If you get into trouble, you wait and they fly the court to you. Well, that's it. If you get into trouble, these are the people who decide your fate. Which I'm not so sure about. That's the judge right there. The guy on the end there, that's the court reporter. He takes the notes. Somebody pointed this out to me just a while back. Look at his pocket. How many pens can you have in a pocket detector? He took his job seriously. The guy with his arm around the girl, that's the crown attorney. He's the one prosecuting you. And the rest of those guys are Mounties. That's Canada's finest. Great bunch of guys. We had a great time with them. This is why we didn't go anywhere when we were there. That fog in the back, that's not fog. That's wind blowing spray off the waves. I think we had every piece of clothing on that we owned. Oh, here's some more fine gear. Canvas, Converse, tennis shoes. Yeah, that's what all the wilderness magazines recommend. We finally made it out of Norway House, and we're on the last 400 miles there. Can finally catch some fish. Keith's getting us supper. I've got this shot because until this point, except for the very first day of the trip, we've gone downstream. There's a divide that comes up through Minnesota. On one side, it goes to the Mississippi. On the other side, it goes to the Red. We actually started on the Mississippi side, but we crossed that divide right away. And we've been going downstream ever since. But now we've got to jump from one watershed to another. And we've got to go upstream for a little while. But it's low, swampy. The current's not bad. Lots of beaver dams, though. Here Keith is looking at our maps, which overall, not too bad. The maps of Lake Winnipeg were good. They used to run steamships up and down the side of that lake, so those were good. Not every map was great, though. I remember one that said, look for a conspicuous tree. Which we didn't deem that real helpful. But we got lucky when we were in Norway House. The Mounties took us over to meet this old conservation officer. And cantankerous old guy. But he actually helped make one of the maps we were using. And so he let us in on some things. Oh, and that's where we recorded the most mosquitoes in one SWAT, which was 17. Beaver dams. We're almost to the divide, came to this bog, and it's kind of tough finding your way through there. But this is the divide. That water there goes one direction. You go just a little ways the other side, and it goes the other direction. This is a sacred place to the creek. Tough day. Our longest portage was around that, maybe about 1.5 miles. We tried to sail. That's as good as it got. I'm sorry. This is something we did every day. We wrote in our journals. And boy, all of us today say that we can look at these pictures and it creates an image for us. But if we go back and we read something we wrote, it gives you a whole new perspective. And so boy, if you go someplace, write something down. You won't regret it. That's how we cooked. Anybody know what this grate is?
Refrigerator.
Very good. Hank still has that. That's the toughest stuff ever built. That's the best grate ever. It's out of, if you didn't hear, see, it's a shelf out of a refrigerator. Here we're starting to get into some of the rapids of the Hayes. And the Hayes, when it comes to a drop, a lot of times it will break into channels. And so the problem is you got to pick a channel. And it might look good here, but you get around the corner, it's not so hot. In this particular shot here, I'm in the front, and you can kind of tell by my posture, I'm not real excited. You can't see it in the photo, but that water's going to go like this, and then it's making a hard left. And Keith's looking back for help. These guys are taking a picture. So they don't care if we die.
Oh, my goodness.
Keith and I portaged around that, and we recommended that they do the same. Because if they got that canoe stuck in there, it'd still be there. You'd never pull that out. But they made it with 2 inches to spare, and then, oh God, they thought they were kings of the river after that. We had to like bow on every portage or something like that. These are the things you do. Some more rapids. In that last 400 miles, except for 3 other canoes and this is the only other sign of man that we saw. And we think this is a seasonal hunting camp, we're not sure. This is a favorite spot. You can see our tents on that dome on the right. another fun one. Fishing was good. This place is Weidemann Falls. This is, and in Cree it means the angling place. At this spot, Rich got tired of pulling out 10-pound northerns. He just said, I'm taking a nap, and he laid down. This one's about 18 pounds. There were lakes there where we could catch northerns every other cast, literally every other cast. Walleyes maybe take you 5 minutes. This probably was our favorite camp. This is on an island in a big lake. Just had to watch yourself at night. You don't want to be too groggy when you get up.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you know, there's just things you don't tell Mom. And at some point earlier in the trip, after one of the close calls, Hank sat me down and he said, Ben, he says, you're the keeper aliver. It's your job to make sure we don't die. And so when this idea came up, I'm kind of in the background going, not smart. And as you can see, they listened to me. Now that's supper. Each of us would eat about 2.5 pounds of filleted meat. We ate fish for 30 days. I do not eat fish today. But it'd take us 2 hours to cook, because we just had this tiny little fry pan. So we're like having contests to see who gets to eat first. You know, rock, paper, scissors, whatever. These are the things that you have to decide. 4th of July, custom is to blow something up. So we put popcorn in the kettle there, let her blow, and then we try to catch it. That's Saturday night in the wilderness. This spot here, this is a great spot. This is only about a day's paddle out of that village that's 200 miles from the bay, so we're not far from that village. We spent 3 days here. It was just a great spot. But on the first day, it was weird. This motorboat came to the base of the falls. There's 3 Cree guys in there. And they're obviously going to portage it around. They're laying logs on the ground, and they're going to roll it. Well, you know, our moms taught us, right? We're nice guys. So we go over there, and we latch on to the boat, help them get to the other side, and away they go. They came back the next day. We did the same thing, get them to the other side, put the boat down, and one of them turns to the other 2 and says something in Cree, and they all start laughing. And we thought, okay, we did something to amuse these guys. Well, then he turns to us and says, want home brewed? They're bootleggers. It's a dry settlement. They're bootlegging into town, and we're helping them. So we said, well, sure, we'll try some home brew. They got this false bait tank. He ladled some out into a jug and gave it to us. And as the keeper aliver, I wanted to know what we were going to drink. And so I asked him, I said, well, how do you make this? Now, the language was an issue, but here's what he said. He said, warm water, yeast, raisins, 24 hours.
That's it.
That's the recipe for the hooch we were going to drink. It was awful. That's the thought that counted. This is a beautiful spot here.